This project has been kind of a joint effort between the Waverly Public Library and the Waverly Police Department. So I'd like to thank Holly Jacobson, who's here from the Waverly Police Department. Would also like to thank our panelists who are here with us tonight, and I'll introduce them in just a minute. We have, after tonight's session, we have 2 more sessions. The one next week is a very big name speaker who we're going to be really putting his name out there this week, but it's Officer Dave Gomez. He has a large following online. He is a school resource officer like Kyle is, and he deals with kids every day, deals with these kinds of issues and talks to them about what they're doing online, and we're just really looking forward to him speaking. He does lots of speaking engagements all over the country, so that's next week. And then the last one is on the 30th. That one will be kind of a how-to session on how to lock down different types of devices if you're wanting to do that. So, and one last thing, the sponsors for this series have been the Friends of the Waverly Public Library, Waverly Exchange Club, and the Kiwanis Club. So we're very thankful. They're helping bring Officer Gomez here for next week. So I think that's it. Tonight we have librarian Ryan Webster from the Waverly Public Library here. And then we have Bremer County Officer and School Resource Officer Kyle Shores, and a counselor through Pathways, Valerie Chestnut. And we encourage you as we go along. We've got some questions to start out with for the panelists, but feel free to jump in with a question at any time. I mean, we're an intimate group tonight, so we can definitely do that if you have questions as we go along. So we've started out a number of sessions talking about, the great value that there is in the internet for a lot of reasons, that we can use connections for learning and social connections that are healthy and that kind of thing. But we do have a lot of concerns about the connections that kids make, and one way that they can do that is through online gaming. So the first question had to do with, is there an age or some developmental milestone where we think children may be more prepared to game online and communicate with others? And I think I'll give the mic to Valerie first.
Well, what's happening with a lot of the games right now online is there's a lot more instant gratification on them. And so, like, they'll save as you go and things like that. So I would encourage with, like, younger kids maybe to, like, steer away from some of those games and do more of, I'm thinking more things like ABC Mouse or like PBS Kids, those kinds of things. Maybe even if they are doing things like Minecraft, like that you can play by yourself and create. And then as they get older, if you like start conversations with kids early, I think that they can start doing other games with like parental guidance and watching them and, teaching them. But right away when they're really little, I don't know, it depends on the family, I would say, and how much you're paying attention as well to what they're getting on. I mean, if you're just going to let them free get into everything, then I would definitely want them to be older, not like 5 or 6. Yeah, so like games from like, what I'm hearing is like games from like, the 80s, 90s, like if you like didn't win in it, like you had to start all over. There was a lot more like problem solving and trying, and now things like save and you get to start over from that point. And so it's not teaching the same kind of skills as the games did when I was younger. And so I think kids get like I said, the instant gratification. They don't have to work as hard within the games.
Yeah. Which a lot of times leads to this term Nintendo hard, referring back to the games back then, which I've thought of a lot as something that in a positive way I think has taught me patience, having to play those very challenging games, getting really mad and learning that you're not allowed to throw a controller. And I think that learning to just be chill, like having that over and over and over, like does kind of teach that. Or I think it can. I don't think it always does. But with proper guidance. But as far as age and online gaming, and I would say for me, I think of it, so my daughter is 12 and she has never done any kind of online gaming. And not that she really has asked me to very much. So, take that for what it's worth. But in my mind, it's literally anyone everywhere. And so for the same reason, if she was super interested, if she said, no, I really want to play Roblox, my friends are all talking about it, this is what I want, then if I had decided to go that route, I would have turned off all communication, would be the number one thing, so that there isn't a way to talk to random people online, which, just as a side note, in that game, that is a thing. You can turn that off. And not only that, but as of January something, if you create an account, it will want to age verify you. I've not tried this yet, but if you do not age verify, it will not let you communicate with others online now. They're trying to adhere to some new laws popping up in, I believe, California and also, of course, in Europe. But the way it does the age verification is bizarre to me. It uses your camera. So either the camera on your computer if you have one, or if you don't and you have a smartphone, it'll tell you to install the Roblox app and then use the camera to show yourself to it, and it will guess your age. And if you are 13 to 15, it lets you talk to other verified 13 to 15-year-olds. If you're 16 to 18, it puts you in that group, and then older than 18 or some, I don't remember the exact cutoffs, but something to that effect. I don't know entirely how I feel about that, but I figured I would let you know that that's what they're doing. I do think it's a positive that it doesn't just assume everyone should be in the same room all talking to each other. So that's probably good in that way. We'll see. But again, for the same reason that I wouldn't, you all get this, a mall. For some reason, I wouldn't drop my daughter off at a mall alone, like the Mall of America, let's say, just drop her off and let her interact with random strangers. That's the same reason I wouldn't let her just get on a game that had open communication with everybody and just, willy-nilly go out and do whatever. Because, it's fine. She's in the safety of her home. Yeah, I've talked way too long. I'm gonna pass it on. Those are my initial thoughts.
All right, I would pretty much agree with everything that these two have said so far. When I started as a school resource officer 7 years ago, you're asked to come up with more and more programs to teach to the kids. And of course we do DARE. And DARE is not just about drugs and alcohol and things like that. We talk about stress, we talk about peer pressure and all that stuff in our DARE program. But they don't really include a lot of online talk in there. So I ended up creating my own online safety presentation, and we talk about social media, we talk about gaming, we talk about cyberbullying, sexting, all kinds of different categories. And I started teaching it to high schoolers, and I thought they would be mature enough to handle most of those topics. Well, as things have evolved and kids are basically born with a tablet or some type of device in their hands nowadays, I'm down to teaching it to, I think, 3rd and 4th graders. Obviously, I've had to change the program. We're not talking about sexting in 3rd and 4th grade, but there's a portion of that that is appropriate that they need to be aware of. And I think a lot of times parents will just, that's kind of the pacifier. Here you go. You're not bothering me. Life is good because you're not bugging me right now. But I think it really depends on the age of the child. I know you were hinting on kind of 12, 13, 14. Yeah, and I would agree. My daughter, my youngest, is 10 years old, and a lot of her friends have Roblox. I won't allow her to have it. Why my friends do? Well, we see the negative side of things, and I just won't. I know that we can turn off communication and that type of stuff, but kids are smart. They're probably smarter than me, and they're going to figure out a way to probably turn that back on, possibly.
With the teenagers that I work with, even if they are within a game not using that chat or they're only chatting about the game, they will find other chats to use outside of the game, whether it be Discord or like I've had some of them, like I believe Pinterest has a chat. There's different things that have chat features, or like I think Google even has like, email as chat features. So if they're meeting people within the games and they're not playing and chatting with them on the game and they really want to, they'll do these hidden ways around it. And parents don't always know about those. And one kid told me recently, and it's like Whiteboard. It's not on Zoom, but there's some other platforms too. I don't know if anybody else knows about that one, but they get around it.
That's a very good point. I have a freshman son as well. He likes to play a lot of the NBA and some football games and stuff, and he will chat outside of that.
Yes.
Usually it's his small group. They're all in a group call together, basically, so I'm not worried about that. But that is a very good point. As far as the age goes, I would say it really depends on the child's maturity level. I know a lot of social media that's out there says 13. Well, there's a lot of 13-year-olds that maybe act like they're 9 or 10 years old. It all depends on their age level. I guess what you as a parent are comfortable with. And I'll probably say this throughout. The biggest thing is get involved with your kids. If you don't understand the parental controls, you don't understand how the game works, sit down and play it with them. See what it all involves, and it's really a great way to connect with your kids as well, because if that's what they're interested in, then that's a great way to kind of to understand where they're coming from, why they like the game. When I start this gaming talk with my students, I usually start off with, tell me a bunch of positive things that you can come up with about gaming. Because they assume when the cop's coming in to talk, it's going to be something bad, right? What's the cop going to chew us out about now? So that's how we start our talk. And they come up with a lot of good things, problem solving, the competition. We develop friendships in there, which through communicating you can. You just have to be careful, is what we talk about as well. So I guess that's all I got on that question.
Very good. And to kind of pick up there, one new thing that we just talked about today, Ryan and I, is I didn't realize the connection between online gaming and gambling. And so one of the questions here is, how do I know if my child is involved in gambling directly through a game, or if gambling is an element of gameplay, but with real money, such as so-called loot boxes? How do I talk to my child to explain this method to them and label what it really is? Have you dealt with that at all, Officer? Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you. Yeah, so just as an awareness of, because I don't know the legality, I don't know the the psychology of any of it, the repercussions, but just to know what is out there to inform you, there are this concept of loot boxes, which comes in a couple different flavors. One would be the idea that you're playing a game and you get points of some kind, maybe for logging on every day and getting streaks. Oh, you've played 5 days in a row. Here's more of these points. And then eventually you use those points to unlock a treasure chest. The treasure chest opens. Most of the time, it's something that's not very worth your time. Sometimes you get a really cool thing, and you're like, yes! And so one argument I've heard is that even if it doesn't cost money, it's training that, that slot machine feeling of, oh, if just a little bit more, oh, if I just do this, I'll get this, and oh, I didn't get anything. I have to try again. Just trying to pull you in, get that attention. What was that? Sure. And getting that mindset. Mm-hmm. And then in some of them, it even goes a step further, and you're like, oh, I used up, today's points, and it wasn't very good. Ooh, there's a thing right here that says for $2 I can get another key to open another treasure chest. I'll just do that. Try it. Oh, it still didn't. Just one more. That kind of a feeling. And then you really do have real money involved. And then take it another step, and in some of these games, that thing that you get, you can turn around and sell it. The thing is usually, in most cases, purely aesthetic. It's just a cool hat for your character. It doesn't make your character play any better, because the online communities usually really rail against if a game is pay to win. That's like the term, and they're like, oh yeah, that game is pay to win. I don't want to, and they will mock that. So usually that's not cool. But even so, even though they're just aesthetic, some of them will be worth real world money. Oh yeah, this one's just really rare. Only, this one's worth $2,000, which some of them literally can be like that. So now it really starts to feel like gambling. So there's all of that, and then yeah, absolutely, yeah. I've heard of such things. I don't know enough about Roblox. I apologize.
Real quick. So the one thing I would say, because this happened with my kiddo when he was like 3, just hitting things, don't save your debit card or your credit card or anything to your devices, because when they click that, it will instantaneously take out the money, and sometimes they don't even realize they're doing it. So like, just, if you have to do anything online, just in general, to buy anything, I would never save your stuff to your account and add it in every time. I know it takes extra time, but that's how, yeah. Yeah, or something through like, PayPal but regardless, if you have something set up and the kid doesn't have a password and they can just click it, they're going to spend your money and all of a sudden be like, oh, I didn't know it was real money I was spending. So.
No, that's an excellent thought. And another thing that I just learned today. So back in the day, I didn't ever really get into online games. It didn't interest me. I think for me, if I was playing a video game, it was because I wanted to be alone and in my head. I didn't really want to be online with strangers. But my friends all got into it, and so something like World of Warcraft, I'm assuming everyone's heard of. It was a popular game in the early 2000s. That cost money to play per month. It's a subscription, and that was because the developers had a server that they had to keep going so that everyone could, so it made sense that it had a cost, and they kept adding more to the game. So imagine it like a Netflix. Like, you pay this set monthly cost, and the developers will keep adding more to the game. And that's fine. But what they have figured out now is what they will do is the games are now a lot of times free to play, but they will have extras in chunks of time called seasons, and you'll pay for this, and you'll have it for 2 to 3 months. But you don't just automatically get all those things. You pay for it, you get the 2 to 3 months, and then depending on how much you play and how well you do, you unlock the things that you paid for. And then if that time period ends and you didn't unlock those, you lose the chance to unlock the things that you paid for. So they're getting you from two angles, where they want you to pay the money, and you're incentivized to pay the money because that's the only way to get the extra things. But then you have to play enough to justify the money that you paid. Otherwise, you lose. It's a whole cycle. Anyway, so that did not know that was a thing until today. I think those are the biggest when it comes to gambling. I think there's a lot of stuff going on with that. It's a super hot topic right now, just gambling in video games in general, and the argument that it's being marketed, toward children especially. And so there's a lot of big name lawsuits happening currently. So we'll see what that does. If you've got more.
Yeah, I think both these guys kind of hit it on the head. The biggest thing, I know, like Xbox, PlayStation, to play online and stuff, you might have to buy the gold pass, and there's different levels of the pass as well. My kids have it. They play every year. You got to update it every year. We usually get the lowest one, and it gets like, I don't even know, $70 a year. Okay. But that's another thing, we talk about too. Back when we had PS2, when we had Nintendo, when we had those basic gaming consoles, nothing was online. Well, now they get you because you got to buy a $400, $500 console. Plus, you got to pay every year for the online pass to be able to get a little bit better stuff as you're trying to play against your buddies. And so I would say the same thing that you said is don't leave your credit card on the gaming console. They will take advantage of that. So once you purchase that gold pass, if you choose to do that, make sure that your credit card is not saved. As far as teenagers goes, if they have an allowance, if they have money at their disposal, they will try to be sneaky. They will go to a convenience store. They'll buy a Green Dot card. They'll buy a Xbox card, and then you don't know that they're using their own money to buy upgrades. I mean, Fortnite's been around for at least 10 years. Yeah. And it's still very popular, and it's all ages. So that's one thing where you got to get, I remember the different skins, right? And it makes you look cooler. Your character's, has all these different outfits basically that it can wear, and V-Bucks and all these different types of upgrades, and they all cost money. And I remember talking to a 10th grade class one time, and I was just kind of joking but serious at the same time, and I said, I bet there are some of you that have spent over $1,000 on upgrades just on Fortnite alone. And there are some kids like, yep, probably, but they don't know because it's all going on mom and dad's credit card. So just something to be aware of. Mom and dad, they probably don't care because it's probably $100 here, $50 there, but over time it does add up in a big hurry as well. So.
A really big bill. I've had
Yeah.
parents they just spent $500. It does happen. And sometimes it's not just a little. I've had some therapy sessions with people about this, and they have spent a ridiculous amount of money. Yeah, it happens.
All right. So does anybody know of any particular resources related to gaming to help parents stay up to date on what's happening in the gaming world? I mean, I know I printed one that was specifically related to Roblox. And Holly, did you have a couple over there that were specific to gaming? Okay, so NetSmart. So before you leave, you can take a look at the handouts and you can take any of them that are over there. They just give you a few resources that might be helpful. If Ryan thinks of any more, we'll share those. We've kind of covered that one. What are the signs to look for that a child might be hiding an online relationship or other questionable communications in games? Are these conversations saved in any way that parents can look at? you have any ideas?
I can start with a little bit of information. You might have quite a bit more to add. Only thing that I would say from the law enforcement standpoint, and as a parent as well, how does your child act when you walk into the room? Are they trying to minimize screens? Are they appearing kind of secretive? That might be one thing to keep an eye out for. Are they creating numerous accounts? And they have some excuse why account A isn't working anymore. I need to create B, C, and D. Are they chatting with somebody on account C? They don't want you to know about that account. Maybe kind of limit the times they're allowed to play. If they have to be on at 3:30 every single day because they play with this one online friend, might be a concern. Okay, maybe try to change the time of day that they're playing so that way that online predator, if it is an online predator, can't find them. If they can communicate with you that, hey, this is a private chat room, this is my buddy, we're both in 6th grade together, or whatever the case may be, and they can kind of show you that. That's a little bit different, but just kind of different behaviors like that I would be aware of. I think there might be some chat logs on certain games that might get saved. I'm not as familiar with that as well, but I guess worst case scenario, kind of Google it, look it up to see what is available for that specific game to be able to allow yourself to review that information, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. It probably would be very dependent on the game itself, whether there are logs. It would also depend on whether the game is more text-based, or, which probably isn't the case anymore. They're probably mostly, I didn't do much for online gaming, and my daughter doesn't, so I don't know, but I'm assuming that most of it is through voice now. Headphones, little microphone, and zoned into that world. And if that was the case, then there wouldn't be any log or evidence of conversations. But I don't know that I have much more to add. I'm really curious to see what you say too.
I was just thinking more about how I've just been having with the teenagers that I work with that have like problems chatting the way they should online. It's just as across the board, just talking about like emotional boundaries in person and online, because I feel like if you wouldn't do it in regular life, we shouldn't be doing online. So just having it across the board, like what topics do you talk to people that you don't know that well about, and kind of just across the board. And when we were talking, I don't know about like the servers and stuff like that. Like certain games you can have like private servers, which can be good if it's just your kids and their known friends playing. A private server can be a good thing, but it can also be a negative thing if you don't know the people they're connecting with in those servers to those games, because that's when a predator could come in. But it does look different for each game.
Were you going to say something?
I don't exactly know. I think it depends on each game.
I do think it really depends. So some games have a lobby where you're sitting in more of like a public space, and in some of those you can have random conversations with people before you start a game. In some of them, it's a lobby where you're just seeing lists of games that have started. So like I do play with my cousin online. He and I just play alone. We don't want to interact with strangers either. But he and I will get on, and I'll see, all these servers with all these names, but he'll just create a private server. I'll join his, which either, depending on the game, either is something that he does in the game where he creates it and then puts a password on it so no one else can just accidentally join, which again would be great with if you're controlling, you have a kid with friends they want to play with. If the game allows that, that's a good way to go. And and then in other games, it's a friend that you've added through, I'm going to say, like Steam, which is what's called a launcher. So it's a host where a bunch of games it's a store and it's a host. So it's a place where you buy the games, but then once you've installed them through it, you still open Steam, and then you find your game, you launch that, but then Steam itself, you can have friends that you've added, like friends like in Facebook, like they're added to you, and then you find them in that list, you click and you say, join this game. They've started a game, I'm going to join through there. So that's another way private games are joined. And just as like a quick informative thing about what I see here with kids getting on our computers is I don't know, again, much about Roblox. So I don't know. I think because of the things that have changed recently, we don't have cameras. So unless they have their own accounts or their parents created an adult account for them, I don't think kids are able to do any communication with other people when they're on our computers, specifically in Roblox. Yeah, if they created it here, they're not going to have that ability at all. Unless they have their own phone and they, then they have, way more power. But, and then with Minecraft, while it is possible to get online, find servers that people have listed online, write down the name of that server and the address, which is usually like something, like 3 words or things like that. It's possible to find all that online, write it down, plug it in while you're on Minecraft, and then join these online games, which I have seen kids do before. But the vast majority play either single-player games alone here, or if they just go to multiplayer here, it only sees games that other people in the building have started. So unless they know a little bit more and know how to do that themselves, they're pretty much locked into just the people who are here in the building, which is, I don't know, which I think is kind of nice. Yes, for the world, yeah. Sure. I mean, double check it, come in with them and play with it, but that's what I've been researching. I need to just get on and try. I just don't have an account and I've never gone down that road, but try it. And then they would chat with others. Yeah. Sure. I think. Sorry. I think it depends on that age verification thing. If you still have not let her do age verification at home. Yeah. Oh, so she's creating a new one every time, or. Then no, I don't think she would be able to age verify unless she has a cell phone. Then yeah, she shouldn't be able to age verify then at all since January, and it should treat her as an unverified and therefore banned from chat. Again, test it and let me know what you find out. But that's that from what I was reading, and from what I've read from multiple sources. That is the state of it now.
I would encourage, though, if you are up to doing it, to like have an account as a parent. I have one, and so sometimes then I'll go in and see some of the games with my younger son and play some of them with him. But if they have one and you know they're somewhere else and you know what that is, when you go on, you can see what games they're in, because then you can join them in that. So that gives you a little bit of knowledge too, not only to like play with them, but like you can see which games they are accessing, and join. So.
I think I agree. I think you do still have to. I believe, might be stepping outside of myself slightly here. Some of what is happening right now is due to a law in California. And since companies don't like to try to have multiple versions, they all kind of conform to whatever they're forced to in one spot everywhere. One of the things happening right now is that if you have content that is not meant for a minor, whoever judges that, I don't know how that's decided, then your software is held responsible for verifying the age of the user. And if you unintentionally grant access to a user in California that is a minor and they shouldn't have had access, you can be charged $3,000 per user. If it is deemed that you intentionally did that, then it's $7,000 per user. So a lot of these companies are taking it more seriously. So I do think we're going to see, in fact, your operating systems, if you have Macintosh or if you have Windows, are going to be asking, that one isn't going to be like a photo or anything like that. That one's going to be voluntary. So obviously that doesn't mean much. But you're probably all going to see that in the next year or so, where your system's going to pop up and say, hey, we need to know your age.
I'm just a normal. Yeah, I'm just like a normal person on it, but then that lets you know that there's other adults on it. You know, like if I can create one, anybody else can. The other thing is, I have a 10-year-old, but his siblings, like one's 18 and one's 16, so I can tell you he was exposed to games sooner than some kids would be. For his age, though, when he's playing, the computer he plays on is like in the living area. So like we see and we know what's happening. That's a big thing. And we also started conversations with him like very young about the games. So when he has come into questionable things, even at like 7, like it was another kid, I believe, was drawing some inappropriate things. Like he was able to come to me right away because we have that open communication. So I think that that's a big thing. And even if you don't want to play the games for very long, create the accounts, jump on with them for a little bit, let them show you, because then you're building connection with your kid too. And if something does go wrong, you know, we don't want it to, but they're going to be more likely to come and talk to you about things too if something feels icky to them. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because and depending on what they're playing, then because you can friend that, then you would be their friend, and then you can see, at least within the, well, at least in the moment, I don't know that you can track it, but if you were to jump on when they're not like in your care or things like that, in the moment you could see which game. I think a big piece is that early communication with kids though, and talking about boundaries like across the board, because talking in a game about gameplay strategy is very different than starting to talk about personal information. And I think one area that's getting really concerning is the role-playing component in games, where people are like pretending kind of to be like kind of different people within the games and establishing relationships in that manner. I've seen happen, like, oh, this is my boyfriend within this game, or this is my dad within this game. And so that's another piece. But if you can just start the communication, open communication, boundaries across the board, they're going to be more likely to come and talk to you later if something comes up that doesn't feel right.
And I know if you attend when Officer Gomez comes next week, I got the opportunity to listen to him about 4 years ago, and one thing he talked about a lot was Roblox as well, and how the majority of predators are out there chatting with younger kids because there are really younger kids on there. Pay attention. I know, and I've just seen this here lately since the first of the year, the Manchester Police Department. Manchester's, 45 minutes to an hour away from us. They must, I don't know if they have extra time or officers that are trained in it. They've arrested 6 adults lately from other cities and states that have been grooming kids online. And they've been charging them with grooming, which is now a Class D felony here in Iowa. Enticing a minor under 16, which is a Class D felony, and then disseminating obscene material to minors as well. And that's all from adult officers chatting with these people. So I don't know if they have people in their community where this has been a big problem, but if you go and look at Manchester's Facebook page, make sure it's Manchester, Iowa Police Department, you will see numerous arrests. And I think I actually just saw a professor from Dubuque on the news tonight. Same thing, got caught up with Manchester. So it is out there. It's happening, and like I said, it's right there. We're seeing it happen right here in Iowa too. So.
Okay, let's talk about, I remember this from my son as well. My son is 21 now, but I remember, gaming was a big deal to him, and the idea of missing out on, if he knew his friends were on playing or something, can feel like the end of the world. How can parents deal with children who treat online gaming as their highest priority? And just really Do you want to start, Valerie?
Well, the first thing I was going to say is that the games now are designed to be more addictive with the way that the incentives that you gain in them. And so that's like they're designed to reprogram the brain differently than the games that we play. That's a really hard, it's a hard question. It really is. I wish I had some good answers for it. Do you have any feedback to start? Or maybe my brain will come up with some answers.
I was just going to say establish time limits. I know if they're not in your care all the time, that's probably going to be a little bit tricky. But I would say try to establish those time limits. Hey, from this time to this time is when you get your games. Otherwise, we're going to find something else to do. And I think that's where it comes down to kind of what do we want to instill in our kids at home? Can we teach them to bake cookies? I know maybe 6 and 7 might be a little bit young, but can we do more family things together? Can we do board games? Can we go work in the garage or work on a project or art or painting? Just different things to get them away from the device. Be outside, go camping, go for a hike. A game of pickleball, whatever that they're into, just to maybe kind of, have them not rely on that device as much. I know in the wintertime here in Iowa it's a little bit tougher because we're kind of stuck inside on days like today. I got home from work and I was tired, and my 15-year-old is like, Dad, can we go out to the weight room quick? I've been cooped up in the house all day. I didn't really want to go, but we went together. Again, a little bit different activity, but he's a little bit older. So is my suggestion, I guess, is just try to do more family-oriented things outside of electronics.
Yeah, which we have with our daughter. She gets an hour of screen time in a day, which she doesn't always use. But again, she's not like I was even as a kid. It's not her thing. But so I can't speak to, like, it's not a challenge in my house. But my parents didn't really give me strict time limits. My parents loved computers, loved video games, all that. I would say the two really cool things that they did is that you said exactly what I was thinking, is that they introduced me to so many different things and spent so much time, an unreasonable amount of time on me. I'm just like amazed thinking back, but to be exposed to different activities, to do all these different things. And so even though I didn't really have a time limit, I was introduced to all these different ways I could be spending my time. And the other thing that I have made sure with my daughter that she knows no matter what, and that I think everyone should set the boundary with their child, is my mom, as much as she liked, video games, TV, and all the other things, it was extremely clear that if she said, all right, time to get up, we're going to do this, no matter what it was, there was no, oh, let me just get to a safe point. There was no, oh, I'm just going to do one. No. Nope. It was up or you're going to lose it. And I learned very quickly I didn't want to lose it. So I learned to just set it down, get it up, turn it off, whatever. And so I made that clear to my daughter a long time ago. I said, if you, because her mother does not like video games. She's not hugely against them, but she just does not specifically like them. And so I said, if you are going to get to play games at all, you are going to have to stop when you are told to stop immediately. And that's what we have stuck to.
So when we were talking about like the board games and other things, a lot of the online games too have board games like Minecraft. Like there's other ways you could like bring it in, or like role playing games you can play. Yeah, there's board game versions of it, or like even like those role playing games and stuff like that. Yeah, so like a lot of schools, like with D&D, like there are clubs. I mean, I don't know if they have one here at WSR, but like at our school, my husband runs the D&D group. Get them into things where they can connect with other people, like esports, things like that. I know that that's other gaming, but things like that. Do you guys, okay, so esports would be like you're playing with your school, like it's in high school, and you're playing the video games like collaboratively. So one of the more that people would probably know more would be like Mario Kart or Super Smash Brothers. And that's fun if you've got a kid that isn't into traditional games, because like my son, he got to go to state and they actually like play, and it's fun to watch. We haven't really had to do it at our house, and it kind of sucks to have to change the internet password all the time, but sometimes you have to do that. When I worked in residential care and the kids were really ticking me off and not doing what they were supposed to with the systems, like one time I just took the electric cord home with me. Like sometimes you got to be creative, and like, because if you leave in the game systems there, how are they going to have access to it and you be able to control it? And then there are other things that you can use to kind of shut down the systems at different times. Some of them cost money. There's a program to kind of monitor things, but this is more like text and stuff called Bark, to kind of like flag you. Yeah, my kid's school, like they actually have it through the school. So if we want to, we can use it at home. But the problem with that is that it then shuts it down to the same standards as the school. And sometimes that's a little too much. But you can pay for those things out of pocket to set more limits on the screen time, even when you're not around, to say, no, I'm taking that away from you.
Did we have any more questions? We've got about 5 minutes left. I had another, we could talk a little bit about online bullying, but if we wanted to switch the conversation in a different direction, that's fine too. This question is specifically, how can you tell the difference between good-natured ribbing and crossing the line into bullying? And how should we, as non-gamers, understand the typical healthy, what are typical healthy gaming interactions like? Maybe answer one or the You want to talk about bullying a little bit, just in general?
Yeah, we talk about it quite a bit at school. I mean, I know the counselors talk to kids about it from probably first grade on. So by the time we do our main DARE program in sixth grade, they've had it over and over and over again. I do still like to go over it. It's a nice refresher to remind kids. I always remind them, I'm like, if you wouldn't say it to their face, why do you do it on your phone? Why do you do it on this messaging app and that type of stuff? And I said, it's actually quite a bit dumber to not do it in face, because now you're keeping a record of it, right? Now we can track you down. And so, and they kind of think for a minute like, oh yeah, that's not real smart. So not that I'm trying to get them to bully in person. I'm just trying to help them understand, anytime you do anything online, it leaves a digital footprint. Okay, we can always track it. I said, if there was ever a major crime where you're constantly bullying somebody, we could take your device, we could take your phone, whatever it is, and we can send it into the crime lab, and they can go through and they can find everything that you deleted. I said, so it's not really smart, but I said, we always preach a lot of empathy too. I said, what if that was you? Put yourself in their shoes. But a lot of kids do come forward, I see, in the younger ages. More through sixth grade. Once you get a little bit older, it's a little bit tougher, because you don't want to, be the one that's snitching on the other person. You're worried about maybe what the consequences might be as a teenager. So it becomes a little bit tougher, and that's where I think, just as a parent, opening up those lines of communication with your children. Hey, it's okay to come to me. Let's talk through this. Not everything is going to turn into, hey, we need to call the school, we need to call the cops, and they need to deal with this. Sometimes just having a conversation about different ways that you can manage that person, whether it be sitting at a different lunch table, just distancing yourself for a while. I know sometimes it happens even in groups of friends, right? You might have 7 or 8 kids all in the same group, and there's 1 or 2 that are a real big pain in the butt. How can we manage that and deal with that? And then if you can't, obviously there's other resources, counselors and things like that out there to assist us with that. But I guess that's the best advice I have on that.
Where do you draw the line between good-natured ribbing, and where is the line where it crosses into bullying?
I guess if it's a continual thing to where, haha, it was funny at first, but now it's not so funny, and a kid can tell you that, then that's the line has been crossed. It's not funny anymore. Knock it off. So,
I would say that just goes back to like the boundary conversations that you want to have with your kids, whether it's in person and online. Like if they have a boundary that they don't like to have crossed and they vocalize it and it continues to be crossed, it's that open communication. I'm going to go time and time back to that. Have that communication with your kids, engage with them, play the games, whether it's online or in person, and they will come to you and talk to you about these things when concerns come up, versus always go to their friends.
So I think I saw this on one of the handouts that I printed for today, but the question was, what if it's my kid that's doing the bullying? What would you advise parents if they realize that it's their kid?
guess I can't tell everybody how to discipline their own kids. It would be a pretty harsh conversation in our home about how we treat others and how you want to be treated, and there would probably be some discipline if it didn't correct itself right away. We usually give our kids one warning, and if it continues, then there's more and more consequences as it gets worse. So, anything on that one?
Right? I know. Someday we'll get a. Yeah, I think that empathy. I think. I love. We keep coming back to empathy and opening up and talking, having that open line of communication, being able to listen and hear out and kind of draw out that. Yeah, how do you think that makes them feel? Or why do you think, why is it fun to say that? Why is it, why do you think your friends and you say, is it funny? Do they get this kind of reaction? How would you feel if you were in that situation? Would you, or what if it was this thing that I know bothers you instead? Oh, but that's different, is it? What if they're feeling, that kind of, I like those drawing out kind of questions.
Yeah, I had a thought and it kind of, it went, as far as like if my kids did, I think things would be locked down pretty tight for a while. I probably would be using that school level bark because we get it on our devices for free if we want to. But the other conversations that I have a lot more with kids at school, because I go into the schools as a therapist in the Butler schools, is really about like, our banter with our friends and stuff like that might look different than like online. We might use different language and stuff like that, but we don't always know who's listening. And another component to online that can come in with the chat rooms is we're not seeing all the facial expressions to know if people are joking. And so that's another piece. And not that everybody is, but some people that are really into gaming already have troubles reading social cues. So if you don't know, a lot of times it's better just not to joke in that manner and to talk to kids about that because somebody else could overhear. Yeah.
All right. Did anybody else think of any other questions or have any questions about the other sessions coming up?